I am not loyal to any political party. For this reason, some people struggle to understand what perspective I am coming from. My loyalty is to a set of principles and policies. Support for and opposition to certain parties is simply a means to an end of honouring my principles and introducing my policies. This is my perspective. On a fundamental level, I think suffering is the enemy and I want it minimized. A society that aggressively opposes suffering is in the interest of all who can suffer. This is a fundamental moral maxim. Politically, I am motivated by classic Enlightenment values. On a philosophical level, I value reason and progress. On a political level, I value freedom, democracy, equality, fraternity, and the rule of law. These are Enlightenment values of modernity, and I take them very seriously. They are great values, and now more than ever, they must be defended. I also have a set of political values for the populist era. Workers' rights and opposition to corruption being the primary two. My fundamental philosophical values, my political values, and my policies are all closely aligned. I have compiled a list of the policies that I support and advocate for. These are the policies that I would see implemented. Introduce a supreme and entrenched constitution to protect people's rights and to limit government power. Ban big money political donations to crush corruption. Reduce MP entitlements and lower MP pay substantially to make public service about public service. Require that ministers have no conflict of interest to stomp out corruption. Make citizen-initiated referenda binding to strengthen democracy. Make election day a public holiday to make it easier to vote and celebrate democracy. Lower the electoral threshold to make elections more competitive. Abolished first-past-the-post in the electorates to give voters more choice. Create a ministry for bold reform to consider, trial, and analyse radical solutions. Empower trade unions to reduce power imbalances between workers and employers. Conduct an inquiry into a 4-day working week to give people more free time. Introduce incentives for worker-owned firms to democratise the economy. Raise the minimum wage, peg the minimum wage to inflation, make highly profitable firms pay a living wage, introduce profit-sharing requirements to ensure that hard work is rewarded and encouraged. Prohibit employers from asking for a worker's expected wage to prevent a race to the bottom. Break up the monopolies and duopolies to stop consumers from being exploited. Nationalise the resource extraction and insurance industries to lower costs and make New Zealand richer. Cut taxes for bottom income tax brackets and raise taxes for top income tax brackets and introduce a tax-free threshold. These policies deliver tax relief to those who need it the most. Provide tax cuts to small businesses to challenge the big chains that increasingly dominate our cities. Introduce a 2% luxury goods tax. Introduce a financial transactions tax. Introduce a capital gains tax. Introduce an inheritance tax. Introduce an empty home tax. Introduce a sugar tax. Introduce a tax on religious institutions. And crack down on tax evasion. These policies will fund crucial investment and tax cuts for working people. Allocate every individual an annual, fully funded doctor's appointment to address health issues early in their development. Lower the pension age for physical workers to ensure that the pension system is fair. Significantly increase spending on education and health to address widespread failures and their devastating economic consequences. Invest in technological industries to strengthen our economy and give us greater leverage as a trading partner. Create and expand marine reserves to protect our marine resources. Subsidise electric vehicles to address the massive economic threat that is climate change. Establish better public transport to address the climate crisis and make movement more efficient. Introduce taxpayer-funded public transport to provide freedom of movement and reduce congestion. Introduce limits on property ownership to eliminate mega landlords and make homes affordable again. Deregulate housing covenants to remove unnecessary restrictions. Establish an anti-homelessness task force to finally eliminate homelessness. Phase out private schools to provide meritocracy and reduce elitism. Reduce class sizes significantly and provide more teacher aides to create a strong education system. Introduce civics and philosophy education to ensure that the population is fit to participate in civil society. Teach Maori history in schools to ensure that people understand the long-standing issues we face. Phase out gender-segregated schools to weaken gender divisions. Make fines proportional to remove classism from the justice system. Treat addiction as a medical issue to eliminate the cruelty of punishing mental health issues. Decriminalise and legalise cannabis to provide freedom and transparency. Give prisoners the right to vote to expand democracy and put an end to the social alienation that causes crime. Create separate gang prisons to weaken recruitment efforts. Optional prison labour to make prisoners productive and encourage hard work. Raise the age of consent to protect young people. Make penalties for sexual offences harsher to deter crime and keep the public safe. Ban circumcision to prevent the needless mutilation of children's genitals. Abolish male assault female and broaden the definition of rape to remove archaic gender inequalities from our legal system. Raise the legal cigarette purchasing age to 25 to prevent young people from picking up the bad habit during their more reckless years. Ban alcohol advertisements to discourage excessive alcohol consumption. Introduce animal rights to create a more humane society. Recognise a Palestinian state to reassert our values. Sanction Israel to punish brutality and barbarism. Establish greater economic independence to strengthen our sovereignty. Establish a task force for trade diversification to reduce our reliance on individual countries. Distance New Zealand from the USA to disconnect us from Trump's illiberalism. Provide Vietnam with a formal apology and compensation for New Zealand's involvement in the immoral Vietnam War to right the wrongs of the past. Provide fast-track citizenship for high-value Americans to strengthen our economy. Raise defence spending to at least 2% of GDP to safeguard our security. Upgrade or replace the frigates to better defend our waters. Purchase new diplomatic aircraft to more reliably maintain our connections with other nations. Invest in drone warfare and cyber warfare to master asymmetrical combat. Acquire long-range anti-ship missiles to deter enemy aggression. Replace the Sea Sprite helicopters to strengthen our Navy's anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare capacity. Launch an inquiry into reintroducing the strike wing to enhance our national security. Create a guerrilla warfare capacity to deter enemy aggression. Acquire air defences for the army to be better equipped for the modern battlefield. Acquire aerial firefighting assets to counter the security threat that is represented by climate change. Create a new national anthem to revitalise our national identity. Adopt a new national flag to disconnect from our colonial status. Abolish the monarchy to embrace independence. Introduce public space standards to eliminate broad copy-paste corporate environments. Finally, address the treaty issue, potentially with a new treaty, to put an end to decades of unproductive debate. These are my policies and some reasons for them. I have fundamental philosophical principles, political values, and policies. These form the basis of the perspective from which I provide my commentary. I am not loyal to a party, I am loyal to these principles and policies. I hope this makes my perspective easier to understand. If you think some additional policies could be included on my list, tell me. I am very happy to incorporate new ideas, and frequently do. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.